Welcome everyone to Welcome Change, our Wednesday news series where we hear from social entrepreneurs and their teams from around the world about timely topics and solutions. My name is Irene Milleiro and I am the Executive Director of Ashoka Fellow Spain and Portugal. And today I'm live here from our Tech for Humanity Summit in Bilbao, where we've spent the last few days discussing about how can we make tech work for humanity. We are thrilled to have many of you joining today from our Ashoka global community, but also a big welcome to those joining from the OCCRP community. Today, for the next 30 minutes, we'll be hearing from Ashoka Fellow Paul Radu. Paul is the co-founder of OCCRP, the world's most preeminent investigative journalism augment focused on organized crime and corruption reporting. The network has been behind global investigations as important as the Panama Papers or the Pegasus investigations. Well, thank you for being here. Could you tell us a little bit more? Could you paint us a picture about how big an issue corruption is? How big is it globally? And why did you start OCCRP?
So first of all, thank you very much for these days in Bilbao. It's kind of odd to speak right now about crime, after 2 days of amazing ideas, amazing entrepreneurs, amazing people. So I co-founded the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project about 17 years ago, out of a big need. The big need was that, first of all, we started in Eastern Europe, a place where at the time the media were captured by oligarchs, by kleptocrats, by organized crime. So you couldn't do proper investigative reporting in the mainstream media in quite a few countries, including my own country, Romania. But it was the same situation in Ukraine, Moldova, in Serbia, Hungary, all over the place, the same situation. So at the same time, we've noticed that when you investigated a corruption case, like a crime case that was high level in any of these countries, there are connections abroad. There are always connections to the US, to to Germany or the UK or various other countries on earth. So we realized the need to build a network because when you analyzed how the criminals were working, we saw that they were operating across frontiers using their own networks. The difference was that they set up their networks way ahead of us, decades before us, decades before journalists. So what we tried to do was to expose and stop criminals from doing business as usual by using kind of the same setup, by creating these cross-border networks where we exchange information. And in order to fill a void, the void was that the law enforcement, in its essence, is national. You don't have international law enforcement. So the journalists and the activists are really the only ones at the global level who can together investigate and expose and stop through activism and advocacy and through filing all sorts of complaints and taking all sorts of action. So we are the only one who can stop organized crime from hurting people. There was another thing that I learned by, I went jail by jail at first in Central and Eastern Europe to interview criminals. And those criminals, they were drug traffickers, people who were selling other people, all sorts of fraudsters. And they had one thing in common. They were working across frontiers in networks. They knew a lot more than we did as journalists about how crime works, and how they are able to hurt and to steal so much. So it is very often that people believe that crime comes and goes. It's like you have this wave of crime right now, right now is the criminal groups from Russia or the criminal groups from Colombia or the criminal group from Spain or whatever. But in fact, crime doesn't come and go. Crime stays. And when it stays, and it stays for decades, it influences everything around people. Yep. It corrupts politicians. It invests in various markets where they distort the market because there's an amount of money that comes into the market from illicit gain, and that completely can completely destroy and kill processes that are in place that we are supposed to take for granted. Democracy, for instance, democracy. I mean, crime is a huge threat, when it comes to democracy, because the criminals flourish, they make money, they loot more when there's no democracy. So that was the initial need for OCCRP to be created, to create a network to fight these criminal networks.
So you just said organized crime is really big globally, corruption is very big globally, and you say many times that the scope of the problem outstrips the capacity of investigative journalists, even if you have a huge network all over the place, to respond. And you were talking to us these days. You see a big opportunity in partnering with technology. What does that look like? You know, what are some of the things that you're experimenting with technology to fight organized crime and corruption? To report on it. Yeah.
So I think what we did for the past 17 years is to experiment, to build a blueprint. Now, I'll talk a bit in numbers. OCCRP, my organization, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, contributed to the recovery, to the seizure from criminals, from bad corporations, corrupt politicians, of about more than $10 billion US.
10 billion US.
10 billion US dollars. But in a single year, according to a NASDAQ report that was released in January of this year, like in 2022, the illicit economy, the criminal economy, was in the tune of 3.1 trillion. So 10 billion, it's this, 3.1 trillion, it's a lot more. So what I believe we did in these years, since we set up OCCRP, was to learn how organized crime works, to reverse engineer what are the processes behind organized crime, behind their money, behind their theft, behind their enablers. Now, this right now, in this time and age, it's a great opportunity that through technology, you can scale this up big time. Because we need to get, like right now, CCRP we're probably working with about 1,000 journalists around the world, and many editors and so on and so on. But we are tiny. We are tiny. We need to scale up, and technology is a big occasion to scale up. Is a great opportunity to go more towards activists and the citizens in general. But for this, we have to open up the investigative reporting space and to share what we learn so that people can take what we learn and take the technology that we developed already and improve on it.
Excellent, excellent. Do you want to tell us more about Aleph? You were talking to us about Aleph a little bit. What is that, and how is that improving? As you said, the capacities of other people to do investigative reporting.
So, Irene, I mean, one thing that you notice when you're an investigative reporter, and we luckily noticed this in the first years of OCCRP, was that crime is the same all over the place. And crime is kind of, I mean, you kind of investigate the same case over and over again. Of course, you'll have different names, you'll have different, maybe amounts of money, and so on, but the crime is the same. There are a few crime models that we identified that you could investigate by using our methods, this type of crime in Romania, in my home country, in Italy, in Colombia, in Ghana, everywhere. So once you understand that, you understand that, well, if there's a pattern there, patterns work great when you have a lot of data. So early on, we started building this system that we now call Aleph. That's a data system where you can insert big amounts of information, company information, court cases, names of people who are in governments, in the parliaments, and so on and so on. And then you can use this Aleph system to start your investigative process. For example, I'm interested if the politicians in Bilbao own assets abroad illegally, or if they are involved in court cases in other countries. All I have to do with Aleph is to put a list of names inside the system, and the system will automatically search across all these other databases that have been indexed already. Because Aleph, what it does, it works across many alphabets, it works across languages, it has like these huge amounts of data indexed, and it extracts entities that are relevant for investigative reporters. So what we did was we developed a taxonomy to define organized crime, to define how criminals work. And that's always, useful in order to check the patterns and in order to kind of take out of this system, where should you investigate and which are the critical points for where you can go with your work. Now, this has solved part of the problem in the sense that it made our work easier in terms of data, but it gave us another bigger problem, because now with this type of system, you suddenly see that you have to investigate not one case or two cases or 100 cases, but tens of thousands of cases. So how do you do that? You can't with the current numbers. That's why I'm saying, that Aleph is the seed for something much, much bigger, for something that can help others investigate.
Yeah.
So it's an incipient investigative assistant that can help any citizen, participate in the investigative process in their own interest.
Yeah. And we've been talking these past few days a lot about how artificial intelligence can help humanity and help advance processes. You've been telling us here in Bilbao about your plan to massively scale computing power for the entire investigative journalism industry, but also how to leverage AI assistance in your work. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you're planning to use AI to be more effective in the work that you're trying to do?
So first of all, we indeed have this problem, that we pay a lot for cloud computing. Aleph, because we work with so much data and we match data set against data set and continuously, that consumes, a lot of power when it comes to how to analyze this information, how to match the information, and so we first have to solve this computing power problem, and this is something that we're trying to form this alliance at the level of the journalism industry. It's called a technology alliance, obviously, where we try to find solutions for everybody, because without this computing power, journalism cannot go in the next phase, so that we stay interesting for the public and we serve the public interest in a meaningful way. Now, with this cloud computing power, you can apply then AI and other types of processes. We've already worked at Aleph, with ML, we've already applied all sorts of technologies, that are helpful in the sense of parsing the data, in the sense of finding, that core that you need for your investigative work. But I believe with the help of LLMs, with the help of AI in general, we can lower the barrier, the entry barrier into systems like Aleph, so that everybody can become an investigator ultimately.
Okay. That's amazing. Last November, you were one of the 32 experts that contributed to the Paris Charter on AI and Journalism. That was the first document of its kind, and it was trying to define the ethics standards for journalism, newsrooms, and for media in general around the world as they start to use AI. What are some of the highlights from this? What are some highlights from these principles about AI and journalism?
Yeah, I actually learned a lot from that group of experts, and I was honored to be part of this group. And I mean, obviously, with journalism, in journalism, you have a lot of ethics, and especially when you talk about commercial applications, the ethic level is maybe lower, in some cases, not in all cases, obviously. So what we try to do through this charter, this Paris Charter for AI in media, is to embed a little bit of that journalistic ethics into the AI type processes, applications. So one of the things that we said is that, since a lot of our content is used to train various models, that we have to have a say in how those models are actually trained. We have to have a say about the bias in those models. So, and to have that say, we have to create investigative power on our side to be able to investigate LLMs, to be able to investigate algorithms and code. And there's some capacity along those lines, but not much when it comes to journalism. So we're still behind with that. The other thing is, how do you implement your own LLMs, on your own platform? There's a mention in that charter that you have to be transparent about that. What do you give to the public? What kind of synthetic information you give to the public? How do you, and what kind of tools you use in order to extract that information, to create that information? So you have to be extremely transparent, because the public will get to a stage where they won't, they have a big problem anyway with trust in the media, right? So that's just going to grow unless we become a lot more transparent, unless we explain the processes, and unless we use this technology in a way that makes sense, and not just for eyeballs, but actually to fulfill the needs of society, to work truly in the public interest. So that's why, there's always going to be this clash between, you want, many viewers on your website or that, but we're really about impact, about, giving people, what they might need. And this is also an opportunity, to create this dialogue, from the public to journalism, so that, the public become journalists. So this charter is kind of the guiding principles for that. Is ethics, is transparency, and it also addresses a little bit the economic part of it, because journalism was destroyed, right, in the past, because content was taken and nothing was, respected and paid and all of that. And right now, we're trying to make journalism a bit more sustainable through using these models.
This is a question I wanted to ask you. We know the journalism industry has struggled to remain sustainable in this digital age. And this is, we all believe, is a big risk for democracy's fourth pillar. How do you deal with this at OCCRP?
So we operate on grants. We always apply for grants. And we now, because we've grown into what is now the largest investigative reporting network focused on crime and corruption in the world, we developed a fundraising department where we're always looking for grants from the US, from the EU, from foundations, from everything. But this, ultimately, you really want to change this.
Of course.
You really want to build a sustainable model where you're not necessarily dependent on these grants, because grants, eat a lot of your time and divert you a little bit from your mission. So now they are necessary, of course, and I'm very grateful for the grants, obviously, but we need to scale up. And I think the LLMs and technology will give us an opportunity to maybe diversify and have arms that are not for profit, and then maybe for-profit arms that where you actually generate income without what you had in the past, where there was this clash between the advertising and the part of the media that was publishing, the publishing side. So I think there's something there, and we're exploring various avenues there in terms of finding solutions to this money problem ultimately.
And I'm wondering also, you're there in between, journalism and technology. How does your own team look like at OCCRP? Is it like more technologies, more journalists, a mixture of the two? How does it work?
It's really a mixture of the two. We have a big tech department at OCCRP, and the tech department obviously deals with our security as well. When it comes to our servers, our data, our people as well, we're very often targeted by spyware. And just 3 days ago, Google sent us an alert that a government-backed, action was taken against some of our Gmail accounts and all of that. So security, then creating this infrastructure, and then OCCRP is really this constellation of centers for investigative reporting, and we're providing them with all types of tech services. So the tech is about, I'd say, more than 1/3 of what we do. Probably actually close to half, in fact, in terms of budgets.
We're getting a lot of questions from the chat. Some people are asking, do you have thoughts about the ongoing copyright debate surrounding LLMs sourcing, the LLMs sourcing mechanism? And is this potentially a solution for the journalism industry, monetize their massive bank of articles? I think it was the New York Times, not so long ago, that was asking about infractions of copyrights in the articles that they have written.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
IP is a big issue, and honestly, I'm torn between, you want to make everything, available to people, but then you also have to be able to generate more content, to make it available to people. So there's this tension there, and I'm following with great interest the court cases that are taking place right now along those lines. That's going to be something to discuss also when we meet next month for this Tech Alliance, for the Journalist Tech Alliance, because we want to take a clear stand on that too. Now, most of the investigative reporting centers, that we work with, we advise them to not make content available for LLMs right now,
Yeah.
you know, and to think hard about what kind of content they make available. Because first of all, for us, it's a privacy and a security issue,
Definitely.
you know, because we work with very sensitive materials, with leaks, with, you know, all sorts of data that shouldn't be made public anyway. So there's a tension there, and there's an ongoing, I mean, there are ongoing talks about how are we gonna deal with this. But I agree, this may be a source of revenue for journalism, you know, if
Could be one of the avenues.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another question for you, Paul. What difference do you find between the investigations you do in Europe and other parts of the world in terms of corruption and tech use? Is it very different in Europe and in other places, or not so much?
You know, I'm also in the jury of these Sigma Awards. These are the data journalism awards, and they are global. And it's amazing. I mean, the innovation coming from South America, for instance, or from Southeast Asia, from Africa. Just this year, we had, I think, you know, quite a big amount of the submissions had to do with AI, were journalists using AI. And there were applications from Nigeria, there were applications from all over the world, you know, that were amazing. So I don't see a gap in technology. What I see is usually a gap in how money is spent.
Resources and how money is spent.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, you know, in Europe, we spend more money for technology, and people in other parts of the world have to be more creative with less money.
Totally.
But they are amazingly creative.
Yeah, I'm looking if there's any more questions from our audience in Zoom. I think it would be good. I mean, even if it's just briefly, because I think we're gonna have to close soon. But last question: what are your main takeaways from this summit that we've just done in Bilbao, the Tech for Humanity Summit? What do you hope happens next? We've met here 120 people for 2 days, having very, I think, inspiring and inspiring conversations. But what do you want to happen next with this incredible collective of entrepreneurs that are shaping Tech for Humanity? What are your wishes?
Well, you know, I felt a bit like a criminal here. So I felt a bit like the criminals that I'm usually after, because I was here to steal ideas. And I heard so many interesting ideas.
Ideas are here to be shared as well.
I know. I'm kidding. But no, honestly, I mean, you know, it's fascinating when you see that someone is confronted with something that doesn't seem like a journalistic problem, but when I hear it or when I see it, I see right away how can I apply those technologies, those techniques, those strategies for journalism, you know, and how we can benefit these people, you know, maybe through the technology that we created, because everybody has to investigate supply chains, everybody has to investigate various types of entities at the end of the day, and that's where we can help. And that's what I heard here. I heard so many interesting ideas of how we can make our workflow better, you know, and besides that, you know, we sometimes really do have to pause and to think and to be mindful, you know, of what we do. And journalism is a very taxing industry. You know, people burn out very early and all of that. And I've learned, you know, a lot about that, you know, and so there's lots of lessons that I will take back to my network, you know, so to share with our people, because, you know, the creativity at this meeting was off the charts.
Yes, and
so
you contributed to that.
much.
So thank you, Paul, as well.
Thank you so much.
Very, very last, one sentence. You have a vision where everyone can become an investigator, where citizens can become investigators. Can you give our audience like one tip about how to get started, and maybe what are the tools that you offer to unleash this investigator in everyone?
So I believe, I mean, we all start by reading, and reading investigative reporting is very, very important, I believe, and read that through your, you know, through your eyes, in the sense that think about what parts of that investigative reporting would you like to explore more, and think about, you know, what kind of tools do you already know to get to those outcomes, to actually get to find the information out. So now again, you know, I mentioned Aleph. Aleph is a great place for any CSO or for any human actually to find information about something that's interesting to them, to investigate something, you know, who built that house, you know, in that city, or who cut that forest over there illegally, or, you know, so there are many answers that you can probably start finding with Aleph. So Aleph is a great place to start. And then honestly, it's really dialogue with journalists, with citizens, with activists who are anyway investigating. I mean, everybody is already an investigator. I want everybody to up their skills when it comes to investigating, because at the end of the day, we want less crime and less corruption.
Definitely, we all want that. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much for these days. Thank you for being here in Welcome Change with us. Thanks to everyone that was listening to this. Please look out for a follow-up email where you will see a link to today's recording and also some highlights to browse. And please share this recording with people that you think might be interested. And we hope you'll join next time. Welcome Change, as you know, is a weekly series about the future that we want to live in and the role that we can all play in that future. You can sign up using the link in the chat. Thank you so much and hopefully see you soon.
Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.